It was Christmas Eve, and the streets of the city were alive with twinkling lights, cheerful songs, and people rushing about to buy last-minute gifts. In the middle of it all was Angela, a single mother, holding the hands of her 3 adorable children, her triplets. They were bouncing with excitement, their eyes wide as they peered through every store window, their little faces filled with wonder. "Mama, look! Dolls!" One of the triplets, Lily, squealed, pointing at a display of sparkling, colorful toys. "Mama, can we get one?" asked Noah, the second of the 3, his eyes full of hope. Angela smiled gently, but the warmth didn't reach her eyes. She squeezed their little hands, trying to hide the sadness creeping into her heart. They had been so good all year, and yet there was no way she could afford to buy them any toys for Christmas. She couldn't even afford a simple gift, let alone the fancy dolls and stuffed animals her children were eyeing. Her heart ached as she watched them press their faces against the glass, their tiny hands leaving streaks on the window. "Maybe next time, darling," she said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "We have to be grateful for what we already have." But even as she said it, she knew she had nothing to offer them this Christmas, not even a small toy. Just then, a man across the street watched the scene unfold. He was tall, well-dressed, and looked out of place in the hustle and bustle of the street. His eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses, followed Angela and her children as they walked past the store. His gaze lingered on the triplets' faces, their eyes filled with longing, and then shifted to Angela's sad expression. As they walked away from the store, a soft voice in Angela's head said, "It's going to be okay. You'll make it through." She had to believe that. But what happened next would change everything. As they passed the cafe, Angela felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she found a man standing there, holding a small, neatly wrapped box. "Excuse me," the man said in a calm, deep voice. "I've been watching you and your children. I couldn't help but notice how happy they are, even though they don't have what they want. I want to help." Angela blinked in surprise, unsure she was hearing him correctly. "Help? I'm not sure what you mean." "Take this," the man said, handing her the gift. "I want to make this Christmas special for you and your children. I know it's not much, but it's something." Angela hesitated, looking at the gift in his hand. "But who are you?" The man smiled, but there was an air of mystery to him. "Just someone who knows how it feels to want more than you can give." Angela couldn't say a word. She was overwhelmed, unsure whether to accept or refuse the stranger's generosity. But before she could speak, the man turned to leave, his voice floating back to her. "Enjoy your Christmas, Angela. You deserve it." Her breath caught in her throat as she watched him walk away. Was this some kind of trick? She was too stunned to think clearly, but there was something about him that felt different, something that made her feel that this wasn't a simple act of kindness. It was more than that. She glanced down at her triplets, who were still excitedly chatting about the toys they had seen. They had no idea what had just happened. Angela felt tears threaten to spill from her eyes, but she held them back. She looked at the small box in her hand, then back up at her children. The magic of Christmas wasn't in the toys. It was in the people who cared, even when you least expected it. But little did she know, this was just the beginning of a life-changing journey. Angela couldn't shake the encounter from her mind. She turned the small, wrapped box over in her hands, feeling the weight of it, wondering what could possibly be inside. She didn't want to open it in front of the children. It would only raise more questions, and Angela didn't have the answers she needed. But as they walked home, she couldn't help but steal glances at the mysterious gift. The man, whoever he was, had seemed so genuine. His eyes, though hidden behind sunglasses, had looked kind, but there was a coldness to him, an unspoken mystery. When they finally arrived home, she put the box on the table and set about making a simple dinner. Her mind kept wandering back to the man. Who was he? Why had he helped her? And most importantly, why had he seemed to know so much about her and her family? The next morning, Christmas Day, Angela woke up early to get everything ready. She didn't have much, but she had made sure the children would have a warm breakfast. They were still young, but old enough to understand the sacrifices she made for them. "Mom, what did Santa bring us?" Lily asked, her eyes full of excitement as she rushed to the tree. Angela smiled gently, sitting on the couch. "Santa brought us something special," she said softly, trying to keep the magic alive. But the truth was, there were no gifts under the tree, no shiny ribbons, no wrapping paper, just the simple decorations Angela had put up the night before. It was enough, but not what the kids were hoping for. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Angela wasn't expecting anyone. She opened it to find a man from the day before, standing with a large bag in his hand. His expression was soft but determined. "I hope this is a good time," he said, stepping forward. Angela stared at him, her heart racing. What are you doing here?" He smiled, and this time, the mystery seemed to lift slightly. "I couldn't stop thinking about you and your children. I've arranged something that will make this Christmas one to remember." Angela's breath caught in her throat. I don't understand." "I'm here to help you," he said simply. "But first you have to trust me." He handed her the bag. As she looked inside, her mouth went dry. Toys. Beautiful, brand new toys. Exactly what her children had asked for. Dolls, stuffed animals, games. All of it. Her children rushed over, their eyes wide in disbelief. "Is this for us, Mama?" Noah asked, his voice trembling. Angela couldn't speak. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh, but her heart swelled with emotion. The man stood back, watching the children with a quiet satisfaction. "I'm glad you'll have a happy Christmas." But just as quickly as he had appeared, he turned to leave. "Wait!" Angela called after him, her voice cracking. "Who are you?" He paused at the door, turned to look at her one last time. Someone who knows that kindness changes lives. And with that, he was gone. Angela stared after him, her heart pounding. Who was this man? And what was his connection to her? Why did he care so much? As she turned to her children, she felt the weight of something bigger than just this moment, the feeling that this stranger had brought more than just toys into their lives. He had brought hope, a reminder that kindness could come from the most unexpected places. But this Christmas was just the beginning. Angela had barely gotten used to the idea that a stranger had given her children the Christmas gifts they had longed for, when something even more unexpected happened. 2 days after Christmas, as the snow began to fall gently outside, Angela was washing the dishes, her mind preoccupied with everything that had been happening. The man's face still haunted her thoughts, his kind, mysterious eyes, his quiet demeanor. Why had he done it? What was his true intention? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Surprised, she wiped her hands on a towel and walked over to answer it. To her astonishment, there he was again, the man from Christmas Eve. He was standing on her doorstep, holding a bouquet of fresh lilies, his face more familiar now, though still carrying the air of someone who didn't quite belong in her world. "Hello, Angela," he said, his voice smooth but kind. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." She blinked in confusion, still trying to process what was happening. "What are you doing here again?" "I wanted to talk," he replied softly. "Is now a good time?" Angela hesitated. She had so many questions, but she didn't know where to begin. "I don't understand," she admitted, her voice shaky. "Why have you been so kind to me and my children?" He smiled gently, as if this was a question he had expected. "I've been watching you, Angela. Not in a strange way, I promise," he added with a small chuckle, trying to ease her nervousness. "But I've seen you struggle, and I admire your strength, your dedication to your children, despite everything." Angela's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know how to respond. He had been watching her? How much had he seen? How long had he been observing her? "I'm not here to invade your life, but I see potential in you. You deserve more than what life has given you so far. Your children deserve a better future." He stepped forward, holding out the bouquet. "These are for you." A simple gesture, but one from the heart. Angela stood frozen for a moment. She reached out slowly, taking the flowers. They were beautiful, lilies, symbolizing purity and renewal. She stared at them for a few seconds, unsure what to say. "Why?" was all she could manage to ask. The man looked at her with a deep sincerity in his eyes. "Because I want to help you. Not just with gifts, but with your life. I want to offer you something more than just charity." Angela felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected something like this. "I don't need charity," she said quietly, looking down at the flowers. "I just want a chance for my children to have a better life." "I can offer that," he replied. "But I need you to trust me. Trust that I want to make a difference. I want to help you start fresh. With the right support, I believe you can do so much more. I see that potential in you." Angela shook her head slowly. "I don't understand. You barely know me, and yet you're offering to change everything." The man paused, his expression softening. "I know it's hard to believe, but I have the means to make it happen. I want you to have the chance to live the life you've always dreamed of with your children. I can help you build that future." Angela's heart raced as she processed his words. Could she really trust him? Could she let him into her life, into their lives, in such a way? Just as she was about to speak, he interrupted gently. "Angela, I know it's a lot to take in, and I understand your hesitation. But sometimes life gives us chances we never expected. And when that happens, we can't let fear hold us back." She was silent, torn between the unfamiliar fear of trusting someone and the desperate hope for a better life. Could this be real? Could this man really help her in ways that went beyond just a few toys for Christmas? "Let me help you," he continued. "I can give you the resources you need to move forward. A fresh start. But first, I need you to trust me." Angela's hands trembled as she held the bouquet. Her eyes stung with unshed tears. She had always worked hard for her children, always struggled to make ends meet. But was it time to accept help? Could she take the risk? Before she could answer, he added, "There's something else I need to say. I've been thinking about this for a long time. And I know it might sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out." He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I want to marry you, Angela." Her heart skipped a beat, and her breath caught in her throat. "What?" she whispered, unable to process his words. "I know it's sudden, but I've thought it through. I've seen your strength, your love for your children. You're the kind of person I want to build a life with. I want to share everything I have with you. I want us to be partners, not just in business, but in life." Angela stared at him in disbelief. This wasn't what she had expected. She had come from nothing, worked so hard to get by, and now this billionaire, this stranger, was asking her to marry him. Why? She was speechless, unable to find the right words. How could she respond to something like this? How could she even begin to understand his motivations? "I know you're scared," he said quietly, "but I believe in you, Angela. I see a future with you, a beautiful future. Will you take a chance on me?" The weight of his words hung heavily in the air between them. Angela's mind was spinning, her heart torn in every direction. This was the biggest decision of her life, and she didn't know what to do. Could she really trust him? Before she could find the right words, he turned to leave, his footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. "I'll be here when you're ready," he called over his shoulder. "But don't take too long. Life has a way of slipping away if we wait too long to take chances." As the door closed softly behind him, Angela was left alone with the lilies in her hands and a world of possibilities laid out before her. Could she risk everything for a chance at happiness? Or was this just another illusion? Days passed after that startling proposal, and Angela found herself trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts. The flowers he had given her sat on the kitchen table, their delicate petals slowly wilting, just like the uncertainty growing in her heart. She couldn't stop replaying his words in her mind. "I want to marry you, Angela." Was it possible to trust a man she hardly knew? Could she really accept a future that seemed too good to be true? He had promised her a fresh start, a better life for her and her children. But who was he, really? And why her? Why now? She hadn't seen him since that day. The days had slipped by, one after another, and her life, her routine, remained the same. But something had shifted. The seed he had planted in her mind was growing, slowly but steadily. She couldn't ignore the quiet hope rising within her. But the doubts wouldn't leave her. She sat on the couch, her eyes on the triplets playing with their toys, the ones the man had bought for them. Their laughter filled the room, a sweet sound of innocence. And for a moment, Angela allowed herself to feel the happiness they were experiencing. They deserved this. They deserved everything. Was this the chance she had been waiting for? She wondered. The chance to give them more than just a few toys. To offer them a future filled with opportunities, stability, and happiness. But could she trust a man whose motives were still shrouded in mystery? The days went by, and she tried to push the thoughts of them aside. She had her children to focus on, her daily struggles to manage. But it wasn't that simple. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she couldn't just ignore what he had offered. He had seen something in her. He had believed in her. And that belief was something she hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, as she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty space where the man had once stood, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. It was a text from an unknown number. "Angela, I know you're still thinking about what I said. I respect your hesitation, but I want to help you in any way I can. If you're ready, we can take this step together. If not, I understand. I'll be here when you're ready to talk." Her breath caught in her throat. He hadn't given up. He hadn't walked away like she had expected. Instead, he was giving her the space to decide, but he was also leaving the door open. She held the phone in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly as she stared at the message. What was she supposed to do now? Just then, there was a knock at the door. Angela froze. Her heart raced. Could it be him? She stood up slowly and walked to the door, her mind in a fog. She opened it, and there he was, the man, standing in front of her, looking as calm and collected as ever. "I didn't want to just send a message," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "I wanted to see you face to face, to give you the opportunity to say whatever is on your mind." Angela blinked, feeling a lump form in her throat. I don't know what to say. I didn't expect you to keep coming back. I didn't think it was real." He nodded slowly, as if he understood. "I know this is overwhelming. But sometimes the most important decisions in life are the hardest to make." Angela sighed deeply, looking at him with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "I don't even know where to start. I don't know if I can just accept all of this. You're offering so much, but I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I'm ready for it." The man stepped closer, his presence reassuring but gentle. "You don't have to be ready today. I'm not asking you to make a decision right now. I'm asking you to trust me, to give us a chance, to see where this could go." Angela looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any hint of insincerity, but all she saw was kindness, a sincerity she hadn't seen in a long time. "I've been through so much in my life," she whispered. "I've struggled for so long, trying to make ends meet, trying to give my children the life I never had. I just don't know if I can take the risk." "I understand," he said quietly, his tone warm. "But sometimes life gives us chances when we least expect them. Sometimes the risk is worth it. For you, for your children. You deserve to have more than just enough. You deserve to thrive, Angela." The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time in a long time, Angela felt a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. "I need time," she said finally, her voice steady despite the emotional turmoil she felt inside. "I need to think. I need to know if I can trust this. If I can trust you." The man smiled gently, a look of understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need, but just know that I'm here, ready whenever you are." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Angela standing in the doorway, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her shoulders. That night, as she sat with her children, their laughter echoing through the house, Angela couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, she had something she hadn't had in years: hope. The next few days passed in a blur. Angela tried to focus on her children, try and keep the reality of her situation from overwhelming her. But the man's words, his offer, kept creeping into her thoughts. She knew that the decision she had to make was one that would change her life forever. But was she ready? Was she ready to take that leap of faith? The days seemed to drag on for Angela as she weighed a decision that was becoming more difficult by the minute. The snow outside continued to fall, a soft blanket that seemed to cover her house in the quiet stillness, mirroring the restlessness inside her. Every time she looked at her children, The weight of the future pressed down on her shoulders. The man, David, she had learned his name from his text messages, had given her space, but now she could feel the ticking clock. She couldn't ignore it anymore. She couldn't keep pretending that this wasn't a chance she may never get again. Angela stood in the kitchen, her hands resting on the countertop as she stared out the window. The kids were playing in the living room, their laughter light and carefree. But Angela's mind was far from peaceful. What if this is a mistake? What if I trust him and it all falls apart? She ran a hand through her hair, thinking about the life she had built so far, the one she had worked so hard for. Everything she had was built on grit, on struggling and fighting for every small victory. Could she really risk everything on a stranger? Could she throw away the life she knew for something that seemed too good to be true? Mom! Lily's voice broke through her thoughts. Can we make cookies today? Angela smiled faintly, her heart aching. Her children deserved more than just cookies. They deserved everything, all the happiness in the world. But could she really give them that? Just then, her phone buzzed again, breaking the silence. It was another message from David. Angela, I'm here whenever you're ready. I'll be by your side through this. But the decision is yours. I just want you to know I believe in you. The simplicity of his words hit Angela harder than she expected. He wasn't forcing her, wasn't pushing her to make a choice. He was giving her control. And that was something she hadn't felt in a long time. As she stared at the phone in her hand, a strange sense of calm washed over her. She wasn't ready for everything. No one ever truly was. But maybe she was ready to take the first step. That evening, after tucking the children into bed, Angela sat alone in the dim light of the living room. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the floorboards. The silence was deafening, and yet her heart felt lighter than it had in days. She had made up her mind. Angela picked up her phone and dialed the number David had given her. It rang twice before he picked up. Angela? His voice was calm, but there was an edge of anticipation in it. Are you okay? I'm okay, she said, taking a deep breath. I've thought about everything. I've thought about what you said and about what I want for my children. And I'm ready. There was a pause on the other end, and then he spoke softly. Are you sure? Yes, she replied, her voice firm. I trust you, David. I'm ready to take that chance. She could hear the relief in his voice as he responded. Thank you, Angela. You don't know how much this means to me. But as much as she tried to prepare herself for what was to come, the reality of it hit her the moment he spoke again. I'll be over tomorrow, he said. But there's something I need to tell you. Angela's heart skipped a beat. What is it? David hesitated before speaking again, the tone in his voice suddenly more serious. I want to be honest with you about something. The reason I was so eager to help you, it's because I see something special in you. But it's also because... Because what? Angela asked, her voice trembling slightly. David paused again, and when he spoke, his words were slow and deliberate. I've been watching you for a while, Angela, not just for the last few days, but for a few months now. I know it might sound strange, but I knew from the moment I saw you and your children that you were the kind of person I wanted in my life. I've built my life on logic and business, but this isn't just about business for me. It's about something more. Angela felt a chill run through her, but she kept her voice steady. You've been watching me? For months. I know it sounds like a lot to take in, David continued, but I need you to understand. I wasn't just offering you a helping hand. I want to share my life with you. Angela, I want to build something real, something meaningful. Angela's mind raced. What was he saying? David, I don't know what to say, she whispered. I know this is a lot, he said quickly. I just wanted to be honest. I care about you, and I want to take this journey together. Angela felt as if the world was spinning around her. She had spent so long alone, struggling to make it through each day. And now, here was a man offering her everything. Not just toys for her children, not just money, but a chance at something bigger. I need some time, she said, her voice shaky. I need time to understand this. I'm not sure if I can just change my life like this. David's voice softened, and she could hear the sincerity in his words. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." She sat back in her chair, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She had made a choice, but it felt like everything was changing so quickly. Was this truly the right decision? Could she trust him completely? The next morning, as she stood at the window watching the snow continue to fall, Angela knew that she couldn't keep waiting forever. She had made her choice, but the uncertainty of it still clung to her like a shadow. And then, as if fate itself was playing its part, the doorbell rang again. Angela froze. She knew who it was. It was David. Her heart raced as she walked to the door, the final moment arriving faster than she was ready for. When she opened it, there he stood, a smile on his face, but something in his eyes told her that this was no ordinary visit. "I'm ready," she said quietly, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready to take this leap." David stepped forward, his eyes soft but filled with purpose. "I'm so glad to hear that, Angela." But as he reached out to take her hand, she could feel the weight of a decision ahead. What would happen next? Would this leap of faith be the beginning of something beautiful? Or would it lead to something entirely unexpected?